LD, or Lincoln-Douglas debate, is a one-on-one moral debate that differs from public forum debate in the fact that it answers a question that is asked of the moral correctness of what the government is doing. It is not necessarily in the form of what the government is doing, rather what in the form of what the government should do in order to be morally just. The times for a basic LD debate will be shown in the following slide. Basic lingo to know for an LD debate is the following. 1. The AC, or the affirmative constructive. This is the beginning 6-minute speech that the affirmative makes in order to represent their case. 2. The NC, or 1NR. This is the negative constructive or first negative rebuttal. These are the same speech. It is the 7-minute speech that the negative makes following the affirmative's first speech. 3. 1AR. This is the first affirmative rebuttal. It is a 4-minute speech following the negative 7-minute speech, which essentially just refutes what the opponent is saying and what the opponent's case stands for. There is the 2NR, or the second negative rebuttal. This is essentially the same as the affirmative rebuttal, except by the negative, and it is 6 minutes following the first affirmative rebuttal, and then the round closes with the 2AR, or the second affirmative rebuttal. This is a final speech by the affirmative. It is 3 minutes to just sort of crystallize and clarify what has gone on in the round. And a final term to know is a voting issue, or voters. These are going to be reasons that the judge is going to vote for a specific debater. Both sides are going to put forth voting issues, but only one side is going to win the round. And so, a lot of the round comes down to the weighing of voting issues, which is something that you should do in your rebuttals. The Lincoln-Douglas debate has two major parts, the framework and the substantive debate. The first we are going to discuss in this video is going to be the framework. Any framework is made up of 4 basic parts: the value criterion, definitions, and observations. So first, let's talk about the value. The value is this abstract good that we are trying to uphold. Because Lincoln-Douglas is in essence a moral debate, we are going to want to uphold what is good and stray away from what is bad. And so, the value is this good that we are trying to uphold through your case or your constructive. And so, common values include justice and morality, are the 2 most common values. And in some cases, where it fits the resolution, things like democracy could fit in. So, in your value, you're going to want to include a justification as to why we are upholding this as the greatest good in the round. Why is this something that the judge is going to want to vote on upholding? And so this is going to be your justification. A good place to get justification is from other philosophers who have concurred as to why morality is good and why justice is bad and why your specific branch of morality or justice is better than other branches of morality and justice. And so, to find this information, you're going to want to go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Next, we're going to discuss the value criterion, or the way of measuring or meeting your value. Since values are such abstract concepts, we're going to want to find ways to break them down and make them more easily attainable in the real world, which Lincoln-Douglas debate takes place in. And so, say you have some sort of value of justice, and the way that you are trying to meet governmental justice in an economic framework is going to be through egalitarianism, or equal distribution of wealth between the people. And so, you're going to want to use egalitarianism as the criteria in order to meet justice. Again, you should have a justification as to why your value criterion should be weighed above other value criterions in the round, even before it becomes a question in the rebuttals. So, you're going to want to have intense philosophical research coming behind your value and value criterion, because these are imperative to winning any traditional Lincoln-Douglas debate round. Next is the definitions. Definitions are relatively self-explanatory. If there is any term in the resolution or any term that you are going to be using throughout your case, you are going to want to define it, and you are going to want to define it accurately, you are going to want to define it fairly, and most importantly, you're going to want to define it in a way that helps you in the round. Don't waste time defining arbitrary terms that aren't going to gain you any offense. Define terms that the judge may find ambiguous, and define them in ways where it fits into your case so that you make sure that you are being topical. And finally, we have the observation. The observation is anything that you would like to say about the resolution or about the round itself that is not going to be a full contention. So, if you want to point out that there is an inherent bias in the resolution, you could do this in an observation, and you could point these things out through putting an observation, which is a single 1 or 2 sentence statement at the beginning of your case, at the end of your framework. So, this is essentially how to set up a good Lincoln-Douglas framework, which, as I stated, is the basis that the rest of your case is going to rely on. Remember that a good contention links into your framework, meaning that if you value justice and your value criterion is egalitarianism, your contention level arguments should be a way of, through egalitarianism, reaching justice, and it should be things that under an egalitarian just framework we would be supporting. The next sector of Lincoln-Douglas is the substance debate, or contention level debate. Any good contention is made up of 4 basic parts: the claim, the data, the warrant, and the impact. So, first, the claim. The claim is your argument. It's simply what you're saying. Some people call it a tagline of a contention. It's what you are trying to state put in a simple, concise statement. It is a one-sentence, very clear argument. And it's very similar to a thesis statement in an argumentative essay. Next is the data. Data is the evidence behind your contention. So, the evidence behind your contention can be something like philosophy, and it can also be something like hard evidence. A good LD debater will mix the two of those together to get a more comprehensive and complete view on morality and reality. And so, data should be anything, any sort of evidence, any sort of fact, research, journal article that backs your claim. And next is the warrant. The warrant is the connection between your data and your claim. You're going to want to ensure that your data supports your claim, and this is imperative to having a strong claim. And so the warrant is going to explain how exactly it is that the data supports the claim. If it's relatively self-evident, this can be a short statement, but if you're making any sort of reach or coming to any sort of extrapolation, you're going to want to spend time explaining why the facts that you have put forward are there. So finally, that leads us to the impact. The impact is essentially answering the question, why does this matter? Why are we discussing this claim, this data, and why are we talking about why the data supports the claim? Why does the claim matter? Why is this going to be something that the judge is going to vote on in a Lincoln-Douglas round? This is the most important part of any contention. It is what gains you offense, because offense is gained as to who has the biggest or smallest impacts, and so you are going to want to ensure that you have your impacts clear, concise, and very, very powerful. Once both sides have given their constructive speeches, or their offense speeches, we are going to get into rebuttals. Rebuttals are made up of multiple different parts, and there are multiple different terms that you should do for a good rebuttal, but the basis of any rebuttal is that you are trying to refute or oppose what your opponent has said and back your own claims in order to win the round. So first, a couple terms you should know. 1, signposting. Signposting in a rebuttal is essentially stating what you are refuting. So, if you say, I am speaking to my opponent's first contention, you are talking about the facts that you are addressing, and what you are saying is addressing your opponent's first contention, so the judge knows where you are in your argument. 2 is a roadmap. Before the speech, any good Lincoln-Douglas debater gives a sort of outline of where they're going to go with their speech. This can be as simple as something like, Judge, I'm going to be going NC-AC voters in my speech. It can be a simple, concise statement like that, and it can win you intense speaker points. So, in any good rebuttal, you are going to be weighing framework. You are going to be weighing the value and the value criterion and going to be seeing which one you're going to listen to. There are 2 major ways to win offense on framework. First, it's to be correct, or for all intents and purposes of the round, to be correct. So, you essentially win the framework debate if you prove that your value and value criterion are superior to your opponent's. Or, you can link into your opponent's framework. You can say that, yes, my opponent's framework is better, but my contentions still fit better under my opponent's framework than my opponents do. So, that's how you're going to win on a framework level debate. Another thing in framework debate is calling an abusive value or value criterion. So, let's say we have the resolution resolved. In the United States criminal justice system, jury nullification ought to be used in the face of perceived injustice. That was a resolution that the NSDA used recently. And so, if someone has a value of justice and a value criterion of using jury nullification on the affirmative, you're going to want to call them out on having an abusive value criterion because it is not something that both sides can equally achieve. And so, a value criterion has to be achievable from multiple sides. As one of my best English teachers said to me, an argument is something that is capable of being discussed from multiple angles, and so you are going to want to only present information that can be addressed from multiple angles for an ethical debate. Finally, we are going to want to talk about attacking any part of a substance argument. Attacking a substance argument can come in four forms. You can attack the claim, you can attack the data, you can attack the warrant, or you can attack the impact. They're all very straightforward. Attacking the claim is as simple as stating that it is untrue or that it is false under the pretenses of the round. So you offer a counterclaim or something that is true opposed to this. It is essentially just like a back and forth. Refuting the data is talking about the evidence that your opponent used. Say they used evidence from a bad source, or they used their evidence incorrectly. You are going to want to attack the evidence, and that is the way that you attack substance debate through evidence. Now, onto the warrant. You can attack your opponent's warrant by stating that their evidence does not support their claim, and so they gave all these true facts, but it doesn't support their claim, and thus you cannot prove that their claim is true. Even if the judge thinks it's true, you cannot prove that it is true. Finally, you can attack the impact. You can say that yes, all of these statistics are true, but the impact is not real, or the impact is non-unique to the case, or the impact actually goes to my side, and so that is called a turn. You make your opponent's impact apply to something else, or apply to your case, and so when attacking the claim, data, warrant, or impact, you should be very clear as to what it is that you are addressing, you should speak it articulately, and you should do so with knowledge. Remember that good research is the foundation of any Lincoln-Douglas debate. Finally, some tournament tips. First rule, be nice, be respectful, both to your opponents, your teammates, and your judges. These people have given up a Saturday to come be here and help this tournament be possible, and so you are going to want to treat them with the utmost respect, just out of being a decent human being, and in the case of the judge, do something that might win you a couple extra points when they're making their decision. Second, have paper and pens. Come prepared. Make sure that when you are flowing your case or taking notes, that you are able to do so in a variety of colors, that you are able to color code, that you are able to organize, because organization is imperative to any good Lincoln-Douglas debate. Finally, have your cases before going into a round. Don't go into a round unprepared. Time your cases and make sure you've read through them so that you're comfortable speaking them so you can speak them with articulation and win speaker points. Bring a charger so that you can keep your phone charged and keep your own time. Keeping your own time is incredibly important because you seem more put together and more presentable to your judge. And finally, have the times written down so you don't forget them in rounds. There is nothing more embarrassing than being the guy asking your judge how long your speech is supposed to be before you give it. Make sure that you appear organized and prepared, even if you're not completely organized and prepared. Also, in Lincoln-Douglas debate, there are two main sectors: traditional debate, which I have tried to explain in this video, and progressive debate, which is an entirely different branch of debate that stemmed out of debate summer camps. Progressive debate terms that you might hear in a round are a critique, or a critique of the resolution itself. This is essentially stating that no matter what we do, the resolution is inherently flawed, or whatever agent we're using in the resolution is inherently flawed, such as capitalistic society is bad and therefore impacts are bad. Spreading, or speed reading, is when people talk really fast to get a surplus of information in the time limit. This may occur in a round. Don't panic, stay calm, and just do what you can. And finally, theory arguments. Theory arguments are essentially argumentation on debate itself, and it includes such arguments as inherency, topicality, solvency, and harms. It is not talking about the resolution, but about the foundation of debate itself and what we are doing in this establishment. And so, to learn more about these different aspects of debate, come to Lincoln Douglas Practice, where you can learn more, become a better debater, and practice.